Welcome back to the Lifestyle Design Show podcast. Today we're talking about how to get free stuff by growing a social media following and becoming a micro influencer. I'm here with Jeremy Santos, content creator, influencer, and event director. Jeremy, thanks so much for coming on the podcast, man.
Thanks for having me, Chris. I'm super excited. It's going to be great today, and I'm ready to get into it.
Yeah, awesome, man. So if you want to go ahead and share a little bit about your business and your personal brand.
Yeah, so I created Orlando Bearded Vegan a little under 2 years ago.
Wow.
And really it started out as a business just more for me just share. It wasn't even a business. It started out as more me just sharing my experience through veganism. And I built this brand of me sharing my experiences being vegan and connecting with other companies. As I started to get more in the community, I started to see more of a need for and just most recently I expanded into doing events because I realized that there was a need for that in the community. So that's why you see me tapping into influencer, event director, kind of whatever the community needs. I feel like that's what my business, Orlando Bearded Vegan, is trying to fill.
So when you first started, you said 2 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. Where did you first begin? For anybody that's trying to grow their own social media presence, where's a good place for someone to start?
Yeah, find your niche. That was the biggest advice for me is, I spoke to foodies, other influencers, and I said, I'm newly vegan and I want to share my vegan experience. And immediately they said, that's a niche. Run with it.
Yeah.
And I didn't necessarily agree at first. I was like, well, what do you mean? Is there enough people, in the world that are like me? But now looking back on it, giving that advice to anybody will say, find your niche, know what you're passionate about, and definitely go for that. Once you find that niche, just run with it. Don't try to be anything else but what you want to be. There was a lot of other people out there. Don't worry about them if they're doing the same thing as you. Just work on that niche.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think finding your niche is really important with social media. One thing I do see a lot is that some people have a hard time finding their niche, or they feel frustrated because they don't think they can grow if they don't have a niche. So what would your advice be to someone who is struggling to find their niche, or maybe just doesn't want to do a niche at all?
I think being genuine and being yourself is really important.
Yeah.
That goes beyond the niche, right? So the niche is what works on your platforms, right? It's because you can do hashtag research and you can really narrow it down. But being genuine and being engaging with your audience is what's going to really draw people in. And it's not going to happen overnight. It really takes time. And it's something that you have to realize that it takes work and dedication.
Oh, yeah.
Only maybe 1% to 2% of the people we see that go viral and blow up overnight. That's not super common. It happens. But even then, when it happens, it doesn't mean it's sustainable. So being genuine and engaging is always sustainable.
Okay, yeah, I totally agree. Being genuine, being engaging. So I wanted to ask, you've been doing this for 2 years now. At what point did you start to work with companies and start getting free stuff from your influence, right?
Yeah, that's come a long way. So it started out mostly with local companies. Now, a couple months in, it was like, hey, I was just frequenting a few places and talking to the owners. And they were saying, hey, try this food or try this product. It wasn't for a good maybe almost half a year to a year where I really started picking up steam from bigger companies or even larger local events.
Wow.
But I think a piece of advice I would have for anybody that's really looking for that is for them to reach out. Think of sales, cold calling in the sense. You're an influencer, you have a service to provide for companies. You have to cold call those companies. So I would send DMs or emails or go to businesses I wanted to partner with. And sometimes it wasn't always about, give me your product, I can help you out. It was, I was a consumer and I purchased the product and I did, reviews for free or, I did features for free because I knew I didn't have a big brand, but I wanted to be a part of that company. So I pursued them and I showed them that I was available, that I had influence in that region. And I think that really helped.
Yeah, no, I agree. Definitely pitching yourself, right? And saying what you could bring to the table and what value you could provide to these businesses. Yes. That's huge. So at what point, follower count wise on Instagram, do you think people could start trying to pitch themselves?
Micro influencers are a new thing, right? They're the biggest thing, the hottest thing out.
Huge thing, yeah.
I think if you have 1,000 followers, you hit that. You 1,000 followers or more, you hit that. But I think that's the hard code, we would say, right? 1,000 to 1,500, you've made the cut. But engagement is a little more important, because when you're building your media kit and your pitch deck, is if you can say, hey, I have 800 followers, but my engagement rate is at 30%, that means a lot more than I have 3,000 followers and my engagement's at 2%.
Okay, 1,000 to 1,500, and that's very doable, right? That's very attainable.
Yeah.
So when you're first growing, to that level, how do you start building engagement? You talked about how important engagement was. Do you think responding to comments or doing stories with polls, or what would you say was a good way to build engagement?
Yeah, for me, my platforms were a little different at the time I was growing. We know Instagram recently changed.
Right.
There's a lot more on TikTok. I don't do that much on TikTok, but I would say comments and responding to your audience. If somebody took the time to comment on any platform, then you should take the time to respond to them. You should take the time to genuinely respond to them. And even if it picks up, any response is important, because that notifies that person.
True.
And now it makes them feel important, and it makes, you feel important. You guys have a conversation with each other.
Yeah.
And that grows as you grow. So I would say comments are the number one thing.
Okay.
But also engaging in other people's stories has been very good for me. So
really?
Seeing people's stories, skipping around through people's stories, and commenting on those would be really engaging, because that's what they're going through right now, right? They're posting their meal, they're posting their product. Oh, that looks great, quick blurb. And what it does is it opens up a conversation in the messages. And there's no ulterior motive there. It's just me getting to know my audience.
Right.
But that person now feels like, wow, they wanted to hear about what I'm going through, or where I'm at this current moment.
Yeah.
And they become somebody at that point. Usually after, they always like your pictures. They're always commenting your pictures, sharing your stuff. And then you reach their audience as well.
Wow. So really building connections and friendships is the key. Interesting. Would you say that direct messages, DMs play a role as well, or mostly like the public stuff, like the comments?
DMs play a role. I'm a male, so I 70% of my audience is females.
Okay.
So I try not to DM some of my followers, just because I don't want it to come off a certain way. I want to be very respectful. I know how our culture can be. I know, we have sayings like slide in my DMs, stuff like that, and catch me in my DMs, stuff like that. Sure. It's just like, it's being respectful while also being playful and fun. So for me, I don't usually just slide in people's DMs.
Okay.
Just because, unless it's a company, or unless I have a communication with them. They're a friend, one of my followers who likes my stuff, where I feel more comfortable. Usually it would be a story message first.
Okay. All right. No, that makes sense. And I think that also comes with being genuine, right? Like, as long as you're being authentic, you're being genuine, usually people won't take you the wrong way, hopefully, right?
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, for sure, man. Okay, so we've been talking a lot about stories and engaging on other people's stories, but would you say for building your own account that stories has been important, or if someone doesn't like stories, can they get by without posting?
Oh man, that was me for a while. For maybe the first 6 to 8 months, I didn't like stories. I wasn't on the whole bandwagon. I was like, I don't like them. I don't want to post. But the more content, general rule of thumb for me, more content, the better.
Okay.
And stories people can look at quickly. They can access really quick. They get a blurb of what's going on. And sometimes you can get lost in the swipe.
True.
The story usually not lost in the swipe. And if they've been on your page recently, that story is gonna go to the front of their storyline.
True.
So I think it's beneficial. I definitely think it's beneficial. It gets information to people quick, and I think it's needed at this point. You have to be on your stories.
Wow.
I'm usually on my stories more than I am actually posting.
Really?
And that's because I like to preserve the overall look of my feed. I like to keep that condensed. That's a tip that I actually use. I've learned is I wanted to scroll and I wanted to look aesthetically pleasing on my feed, and I want my highlights to speak for themselves and the stories to speak of what's actively going on day by day with my page and my brand.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So as far as the aesthetic feed, then, so you like to keep your day-to-day on the story, that makes sense. But how would you keep your feed aesthetic? Do you use like similar filters, or would you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, first you have to find what are you going for. So right now I'm a little bit between food, events, and lifestyle.
Okay.
So I like to mix those around, but colors are very important for me. So my filters are not so much important. It's more the base colors, like background colors and whatnot.
Interesting.
I like to mix it up. So if I know I'm posting a food plate that has primary yellow coloring, let's say, I don't know, pineapples, for example, right? I know I want to base that off with the next one, maybe something with a background of green, because then that looks really good next to each other on the feed. And then I don't want my graphics, I don't want a whole 3 rows of graphics on Instagram or even on Facebook or whatever platform, is because then it catches people's eyes. And as you scroll, you can kind of see a little bit more between it. As far as the feed, all of their actual writing on their text or infographics have the same color tones. And those match their highlights. So I've seen pages on that looks very aesthetically pleasing. That's not something I personally do, but it's something that would work very well and is very eye-catching.
Okay, wow. So you put a lot of thought into your feed and the color scheme. And it shows, right? People might not always realize why they think a feed looks aesthetic, but people do know when a feed does look aesthetic. It's sort of like it's a natural reaction, right?
Right, they just catch it in the instant.
For sure. I know for myself, I started about 1.5 years ago trying to do every third photo I would do a tweet. And I stuck with that, sort of trying to keep that pattern. And it's similar, to keeping a feed aesthetic. And the other day I got a comment, someone said that they loved the way it looked. And I was like, wow.
Oh, that's perfect.
That means so much, right? But on the contrary side, is there such a thing as putting too much thought? Sometimes people might not want to post because they overthink their content. So do you have any opinions on that?
Yeah, I'm a thinker. I'm a Cancer. I'm really in my feelings. I like to think things through. So I've been on that side. I definitely think there's too much of a thought. And I think in a society where we look at things with instant gratification, we may see other larger influencers and be like, my pictures don't look like that. My content doesn't look like that. And, I really discourage people from feeling that way. Yes, it's natural, but sometimes just be yourself, Actually, always be yourself. But when you're in those moments, remember to just be yourself, because a lot of the people who are following you for you.
True.
So it's important to plan ahead as far as, goals and, how you want your feed to look. But if you're experiencing something that you feel your audience would like, post that picture right now and then. Post that caption, because you can always go back later and hide it in your timeline, delete it, but you can't recapture that moment if you lost that opportunity. So yeah, it's natural to feel that way if somebody says that, but don't let it hold you back from being you, because that's what your audience wants to see.
Okay, awesome, man. So we'll move into how to start working with brands, and you mentioned earlier like your pitch deck. Is that what you said?
Yeah, my media kit and my pitch deck.
Okay.
2 highly important things, and kind of falling back into the conversation I was saying about how my feed looks is just as important. Because what's going to happen is if these brands are on Instagram and they found you there, or you're messaging on there, I can tell you the first thing that they're going to do is automatically click your page to go look how your page looks.
You're right.
100%. And they're going to see, does this fit our brand? Does this fit our marketing? Does this fit what we're going for? Yes? Then great. Now we can look at your media kit. It's kind of, your media kit's your resume for influencers, and your pitch deck is what you're going to bring specifically for that brand.
Okay.
So all 3 of those are just as important, and you have to kind of tailor the last 2 specifically to the brand you're reaching out to, because what you want is, if I'm reaching out to, let's say, Beyond Meat, for example, I want them to show what I'm going to bring to them, right? They sell, meat patties or, meat substitute products. And if I'm not a recipe influencer, right? I don't create recipes. Then what am I going to bring to them? Can I show that I can bring them marketing dollars? Can I expose them? So you have to, don't make them search for that. True. Make that easily attainable to you. Tell them, this is what I have. This is who I am. This is what I can do for you.
Okay, that makes sense. So your pitch deck is almost like your cover letter?
Yeah, essentially it's your cover letter. Keep it simple. Keep it straightforward. And then your media kit tells all about your brand. So that's going to show things like statistics on your audience, your engagement, likes, your comments. It's also going to tell things about your origin story, where you want to go. And then in mine, I include a few pictures of like some of my recent work, or some of my work that really shows off what I'm really into. I also include testimonies of local businesses that I have.
Smart.
That's very good, because they actually, I asked them, could you write a testimony for me? And they send me great testimonies that include numbers, right? These are businesses we're working with, so they want to see numbers. They want to see, hey, I've worked with Jeremy and he gave me, over the course of the month, a 20% increase in customers that viewed my stories.
Wow.
Stuff like that makes a huge difference. You don't want to just go to your friends and say, hey, write this for me, and they say, Jeremy's a great person. you know?
For sure. You want them to be authentic and real reviews.
Absolutely.
So for your media kit and pitch deck, what platform do you use to make those? Do you use Canva, just a Word document? Like, what would you recommend?
Yeah, so I have two. One I created on a Word document, and then I beautified one up on Canva.
Okay.
If you're not using Canva, you need to be using Canva right now.
Do you want to talk about Canva a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, Canva's great. Canva, like, I'm not a graphic designer, and I use Canva for everything. I have zero experience in any type of designing. Canva has got me there. Any flyers you see, I make on Canva.
Wow.
I have no shares in Canva. It's not sponsored by Canva. Canva, if you're listening, I'm open to stuff. But no, seriously though, Canva's great. You can make things from event flyers to actual Instagram posts, and the dimensions work. So you can type in Instagram story, and it's gonna fit the dimensions. Facebook post, whatever it may be.
Okay.
And then you can use baseline templates that they've already had to kind of take the creating element out, or to help ease that burden. Beautify things, remove backgrounds. So it's really great. In this case, I use it for the media kit. Really helped out.
That's awesome, man.
From there, so yeah.
Wow. Okay, so I really appreciate that. That's really good tips. I need to work on my media kit and my pitch deck. I haven't actually done that yet, but work in progress for sure.
Yeah.
So let's say you're starting, from scratch, and you get yourself to 1,000, 1,500 followers, right? You start working on your pitch deck. You start working on your media kit. What would be the next step? Would you recommend posting and tagging brands on your story? Would you recommend just cold emailing them? What would be the step after?
Taking it a step back, I think it's important. You don't want to get to 1,500 followers and then think about this stuff. If you have 0 followers or 300, 400 followers, and you're getting to 1,500 followers and you're watching this video, you should be thinking about these type of things now.
Really?
Because you can prepare to say, hey, I want to be with these brands, or these are brands I want to work on. And you may not have the following to feel comfortable to reach out, but you can already follow them, like their stuff, be up to date on news of what's going on with their company. That's important. Now, on the other hand, if you're over 1,500 followers and you're now saying, I want to do this, then I would work on the things that we mentioned before, media kit, pitch deck, have those out. And to kind of leave with what you were saying is, if your feed looks really great, you have the following and you feel comfortable, tag them in your post.
Okay.
Tag them in your post, comment on their page, be a regular on their page. Because if they're a larger company, they're going to have somebody that's running that.
Right.
Hands down, and they're going to notice you. And then if they're a smaller company, then the owner or somebody high up in the company is going to be running it themselves. They'll see that after a while. It will take a while, but they'll see it.
Okay. Yeah.
And then when you're ready to really reach out, sometimes I like to just send a DM and say, hey, I love your guys' brand. I've been using it for a while. I'm interested in collaborations. Are you guys interested?
Wow.
Larger companies, 9 times out of 10, or maybe 7 times out of 10, they would say, send an email to this email. And it'll be marketing or, social media and so forth. But you kind of open that segue already, and that person handling the Instagram now recognizes that you've reached out. They may say something to the social media person, they may not, but you just made a connection. Then I send an email. Then my email says, hey, I reached out on Instagram. I was given this email. This is my page. This is my media kit. This is my pitch deck. Boom, and send it off. And then after that, I do not give up. You may not hear from them, and they might not have the ad dollars right then. They might be already working on other campaigns. Do not feel discouraged, because if you continue to tag and comment, well, guess what happens 6 months from now when they get more ad dollars or they're looking for their next campaign?
They remember you.
They remember you.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's a really good tip, man. What I started doing when I first sort of got into the social media thing is a little life hack. Is whenever I would go somewhere and put it on my story, rather than tag the location, I would always tag the actual Instagram account. And so they could get notified and see it. Because if you tag the location, the business doesn't always know that you posted that. So that's a little something that I learned, a lot of times businesses would swipe up and be like, thanks so much for coming or whatever. Just started building that connection,
Yep.
And it's something else I noticed as far as the emails is on your own account, making sure that your email address is linked to your social media.
Yes.
I found that being pretty helpful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's a huge thing. Having that contact button. And I will say you'll get spam. You will get spam emails. There's tons of emails you get. Hey, we're going to grow your following and whatnot. but just the benefit of having some emails that come in from brands that can easily find out how to contact you is 100% worth it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So as far as the brands that you've worked with and the free stuff that you've gotten, do you want to talk a little bit about that? What primarily do you look for or do you get?
Yeah, so a lot of it's food, right? I'm probably 70% food, and a lot of it.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, we love food, and I picked that on purpose because food is a universal language, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what culture, what background you have, where you live in this world, we all love food, and food brings people together at a table. A lot of food, I've gotten a lot of gift cards, a lot of food, and a lot of it would be local spots. But some of the bigger companies, right now I get about 1 to 2 emails every week or so with product offerings. You have to think about what you want and if you want to take those in exchange for post. Now I'm at the point where I get to pick and choose, and I choose paid promotions, over just product. I didn't start out that way. I had humble beginnings, and we all didn't start out that way. So it's important to know that. But I would recommend to keep yourself genuine, and just because somebody offers you a free product doesn't mean you have to take it. And that's something that I've always done. So even when I was smaller, because I am still relatively small, is keeping genuine to what you want to be, or who you want to portray yourself as. But I've gotten things like gift cards, hotel stays.
Wow.
Free meals. Some products, like actual physical products like clothes.
Yeah.
Stuff like that from a couple of different brands. Some of it has just been sent, no strings tied. Some of it has been on contract.
Wow.
And I've even worked with like local governments.
Seriously?
Well, yeah.
Wow.
Local tourism boards. So it's kind of a mix of everything. When you find out where you want to go, you can kind of tell people. You can find yourself in that niche or in that spot where there's business at.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it will depend on your niche, right?
So
like you said, you're a lot of food, so you get a lot of food. Someone who does like travel blogging might get free hotel stays, or fashion might get more clothes, whatever it may be. But I really like what you said about staying true to your brand. Just recently I got an email from some crude oil something or another that wanted to be some sort of sponsor, and I was like, I can't do that. Because if you do take a free product from a brand and you post about it and it doesn't go with your values, people start to lose trust, right?
Absolutely.
You start to lose some of that social equity that you built up.
Absolutely.
So that's huge. That's really huge. I did want to ask, there's tons of websites that connect, micro-influencers with brands. Would you say that those are worth pursuing, or more so just directly reaching out to the brands that you want?
I don't have a lot of experience using those. I'm more of a do-it-yourself type of guy, so just reach out, cut the middleman out. We have great platforms like here, wherever you're watching, that you can just find people with real experience that are micro-influencers, and just use their word and try out their advice. Just give it a try. I don't think you necessarily need an agent, or you need to get, that in between. And yeah, you may get work from those. They may have benefit. But for me, I think it's just getting out there and grinding has been more beneficial for me. And you learn as you go. I have made mistakes, and I've gotten to the point where like I've lost opportunities because I talked myself out of them, or I've taken a free product when they would have offered me payment. So that's stuff as you learn as you go, and it's okay. It's okay for that stuff to happen.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, I like that. Cut out the middleman. And when you're learning and you're growing and you're reaching out to these brands, what's really cool is you get to choose rather than just sort of just shoot in the dark. Whoever wants to work with you.
Yeah.
You get to choose which one of your favorite companies you get to work with, which means a lot. Another benefit is you're actually improving these businesses, right? You're actually helping them, along with them giving you free stuff. It's a mutual beneficial, right?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're in this just for the free stuff, you will get the free stuff, but what you're going to begin to see is that you're going to start to care more, especially if you're choosing your businesses, because you've already care about that business because you give them your consumer dollar. So, if you just want money, then go with whoever you want, but it's not going to be sustainable. But if you choose your businesses, you're going to be more invested because you're going to purchase from those businesses regardless because they're a part of your life.
Yeah, no, very true, man. Do you want to do a quick speed round of the best like pro tips for becoming a micro influencer?
Let's go for it.
All right,
yeah.
awesome. So we mentioned having an aesthetic feed, right?
Yep.
That's important. All right, do you have one?
Engagement.
Engagement
is
is huge. Okay, so hashtags. Do you think those are pretty big?
Hashtags are very big.
Okay.
Don't let anybody tell you anything different. Hashtags are big.
Really quick on the hashtag subject, how many hashtags per post do you think? I try to shoot for like 7 to 15, but what do you think?
Yeah, I would say around 10. You
Okay.
know, but it's important a big mix between the small, medium, and large hashtags.
True.
If you don't know about those, that's very important.
Yeah.
You can't just tag, for example, for me, vegan, and has like 25 million and expect to be found there. In the next second, there's probably another million, you know, in there.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
crazy numbers, but you know, so you have to mix your local and your small. Do your hashtag research. It's worth it.
Okay, so hashtags are big. Stories, that's another big one, right?
Stories are huge.
Stories, okay.
Yep.
What else?
Media kit, pitch deck, being
Media
prepared.
Kit. Yeah, media kit, pitch deck is huge. Making sure that you tag brands if you go somewhere.
That's right.
Yeah, tagging the brands instead of just the location. That's big.
And we haven't actually hit on this yet, but your bio. Your bio
Yeah.
is huge. Shoot, that goes along with aesthetics, but it's important in your bio that people know what are you doing, who are you for, you know, what you're there for on that platform. That's important to match aesthetics.
So what makes a good bio in your opinion?
I think bio is like laid back social resume kind of. It's just like, hey,
Okay.
this is me, and this is what you're gonna find. Do you know? Like,
Yeah.
like basically like, and you know, it's important. Like on Instagram, for example, you can have your name. So I'm Orlando Bearded Vegan on there, but your actual title of your bio, like you can put your personal name.
Right.
A lot of people mess up and they do things like their full name there. But when you DM somebody, it shows that name.
Really?
Yeah, so it would show that name. That name will come up, and like, you know, a lot of the notifications. So it's important to put like, you know, what's on there. I have a few friends that they'll put like, you know, a name and they'll be like lifestyle blogger. You know, for me, I put my first name and Orlando Bearded Vegan, so it's identifiable.
Smart.
So make sure that name is strategically placed for what audience you're trying to reach, and when you're DMing them, it could show that as well.
Yeah, it's probably good for like SEO, search engine, right?
Yes,
When people
absolutely.
are searching. Yeah, so those are all really great tips for how to grow on social media. So once you find yourself to like where you're at as far as your brand, sometimes people will move into like the event director space. So do you want to talk a little bit about that and how social media has benefited that?
Yeah, so social media is a platform for you to be an influencer, but we've seen a lot of influencers, they either grow their own business or they do events or even products like, you know, from clothing or whatever it may be. In my case, I transitioned to do events locally within the region, and that has been very impactful because I kind of get two businesses in one, right? So now when I go to companies, small or large, I can say, hey, you have Orlando Bearded Vegan, the influencer, and then you have Orlando Bearded Vegan, the event director. How would you like to collaborate with me? These are my two options, and these are the reach between the two of them.
Interesting.
And the reason I was able to move into the event director side is because I built connections locally, regionally, as an influencer, is where I can now call upon those connections and send emails and say, hey, I'm looking to do this event. You know, could we have it here? Are you interested? And it kind of eased that burden, so it wasn't from square one starting events,
That makes sense.
which really helped. Yeah.
Wow, man. So the main event that you do is the Vegan Outlet, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, the Vegan Outlet is my brainchild. It is a monthly right now vegan event. You can plug into everything plant-based. So we have 30 to 40 vendors. There's food vendors, any type of food you can think of. It is a very diverse event. We have craft vendors, we have art vendors, we have nonprofits. There's a live DJ there. We even have speakers. Our state representative from District 47, Anna Escamani, has come out. And it's at a really cool artistic space called the Hanau Center, also known as the Sound Garden. It's a great event. It's monthly right now, but we're actually transitioning to bi-weekly, so it's going to be 2 times a month.
Wow, that's incredible, man. And so most of the vendors that come to these events, you would say you've met most of them through social media?
Absolutely. So I've met them all through social. Prior to this event, I've either helped out at other events and met them, or I've met them at, you know, on social, or, you know, at their business. I've all had prior relationships with, I would say, 90% of them
Wow.
before doing the event.
Wow, and that's just like a testament to like what you could turn your personal brand into, right?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of them, I know them on first name basis now. You know.
Wow.
And you know, I'm doing another event I'm working on, and I specifically, it's limited on their numbers, and I picked the vendors I wanted to work with, and I reached out to them. I sent them a text message and say, "Are you interested?" And they brought in, because at this point they're not just buying into the event or the influencers, they're buying into me because we've got built the relationship. And that's what you want, is you want people to buy into you as a brand, and everything that you bring with it.
Right. Wow, man, that's incredible. That's really awesome what you're doing. Is there anything else about social media or event directing that you think you want to add to help someone else who's aspiring? Yeah.
So I would say, you know your timeline. It is going to take some time. Be patient. Don't get so stuck on the number, like a number of followers.
Right.
You know, how long it's taking you. You know, just have an idea and plan it out. I think planning is very important. So, you know, being natural, but, you know, also saying, hey, these are my goals. You know, these are the companies I want to work with. These are the type of events I want to do. And just building connections. Being a consumer, an active consumer, just like when you actively listen, you know, it will put you in a platform where people will feel open to share their ideas, and maybe those will align with what you have in mind as well.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think that's really important, knowing your timeline. The social media, it's about the long game.
It is.
Yeah, it doesn't happen overnight, but it's very possible. It's very possible. Awesome. Well, Jeremy, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, man. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
Make sure to follow him on social media, Orlando Bearded Vegan, right?
Yep, Orlando Bearded Vegan. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, wherever.
Awesome. Then I'll put it in the description. Jeremy, thank you again, man, and thanks for watching. Until next time.
Have a good one, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Awesome.